There's my one for the month. Anyway, what's happening, guys? Willie here at The Great Outdoors. What are we talking about today? Well, we are going to have another part one, part two. Today we're talking about something that's just odd, strange, funny, weird, peculiar, bizarre. For me to actually be talking about, to be quite honest with you. Something I don't normally deal with, mess with, use, find a lot. I find the name a lot anyway. And what is that, you may ask yourself? Again, if you're asking yourself, you either have to have ESP or have already talked to me. If you have neither of those, stop asking yourself, because people are going to think you're strange talking to yourself like that. Something don't feel right. That's better. That's much better. Slightly. I did that fairly well, but I didn't quite get it like I wanted. So what we're talking about today is a company that I normally do not talk about. You very seldom ever hear me talking about. And when you do hear me talk about them, it's because I have seen a certain version of this reel or this company everywhere. And that company is going to be Penn. That's right, Penn, P-E-N-N. What we all associate with the saltwater realm. Well, it just so happens that Penn, though more saltwater oriented, did do a few reels here and there that were freshwater oriented. And I have seen many argument on, I don't know, if you get on Google and you start looking these things up, you start finding out that there's people out there that, hey, this one was freshwater and saltwater, or this one was just freshwater. No, it's not. It's actually freshwater and saltwater. Or this one's just, yeah, you know, there's a lot of that on there. And I don't argue with any of them because I don't know. I grew up, and it's actually, as much as that happens, it's a wonder I ever did grow up. I live on the East Coast. I live in a saltwater oriented world here. I'm surrounded by it. I did a lot of saltwater fishing when I was a kid. My dad would actually send me down to the local marina, and I would take a fishing rod and a reel that was tied around the sissy bar of my old Schwinn Stingray or my Free Spirit Sears and Roebuck, and he'd give me $5 and I'd go down to the store. I would buy squid, I would buy a Coke, I would buy some form of candy, and catch fish for my dad. Sometimes I'd eat the squid and use the candy for bait. We weren't rich people, mind you. So I did not have a Penn reel. I had a Mitchell, usually a 300 when I was dealing with saltwater like that. And I still, to this day, have the rod that I used to use back then. I bought it at a company called Best. Not Best Buy, not to be confused with them. It was actually Best, and it was B-E-S-T. And it was like a place that I guess today would be considered more like Ollie's. They get things that don't sell elsewhere, and they had them for incredible low prices. And I remember buying that rod, and it was $8. I remember because I had cut the grass that week, and I had got my allowance for cutting the grass, and I had saved up my money, had $8, and I bought that rod. Put me a Mitchell reel on there, and Mom took me down to old Yorktown Beach where we were catching croaker and spot and flounder and a little bit of everything. So I still have that rod today, but not having a lot of money, I had a Mitchell 300 instead of a Penn reel. Now, I found a couple of Penn reels in the last, I don't know, let's just say 6 or 8 months that kind of brought me around to going, wow, these things are really kind of cool. I have a couple Penn reels. I actually have 3 now. I have a Penn 712Z, and I have a 7500 SS. Both reels that I found locally, yard sales. And People were just selling them, and I got them really cheap. And recently, someone brought up the original, I don't know if it's original or not, but they were called Greenies, if you're familiar. They were back when Penn was aluminum and green. You had the silver and a pale green color. Well, it so happens that they make an ultralight version. And it's a 716 Spinfisher is what they call it. I found one of those, and I believe in the video where I went to Stanton and went to all the antique stores, I told you that I had found one. When I got back home, I started looking those things up and became a little bit more, I don't know, I guess intrigued, I guess would be the best word to use, by them, and started finding out they're not cheap. And the price that the gentleman was asking for the one that was there wasn't bad, but the drag knob was cracked in 3 places. As it turns out, that happens. That particular reel, the way the drag knob is made, is much like an old Mitchell, where it's threaded on the inside and you have a little button on the top you press and it pops the drag, button comes off and then your spool comes out, like an old Mitchell really. So I didn't buy it at the time, but I made a call to the Factory Antique Mall in Stanton, Virginia, or Verona, Virginia, whichever town comes up first when you look them up. They found the reel and it was still there. I asked if they would call the gentleman and drop the price a little bit because the drag knob was broken. He did, so the price that they dropped it down to covered my shipping, so I ended up buying the reel for basically what it would have been, so they are shipping it to me. Now, after I bought that reel, it's on its way. It's not here yet. That'll be part 2. Part 1 is going to be this beast right here. The Penn 710 Spinfisher in the lovely green, and we all know how I am about green. Well, this is a different version of green. This reel you can find anywhere between $25 and $65, depending on if there's a box or if there's whatever, that kind of thing. This one functions fairly well, does everything it's supposed to do. It has been used, and you can see it has been held right here. The paint is completely worn off, but that's okay. I'm totally cool with that because we all know how I am about the underdog and the, I don't know, the aesthetically pleasing. No, I guess it's not even that really. I guess let's call it patina. I hate that word because patina doesn't mean anything. It doesn't. It's stupid, to be honest with you. It's just used. Okay? It's been used. This has been fished with. That is what it's for. That's what it did. But this one still does what it's supposed to do. And what we're supposed to do is take this thing apart, completely clean it out, clean it up, make it fish worthy, get it back on a rod and get it back out there fishing. This, being a more saltwater oriented reel, would be awesome to take and do a little catfishing or any kind of fishing. I mean, we can go anywhere with this thing. Not that the other 2 pins that I have wouldn't do it as well, but I just really think this thing is cool and I really want to take it out, clean it up, get it doing what it's supposed to do again and get it out there. Now, I have recently been watching a gentleman by the name of Steve Miller. And I'm not talking about the Steve Miller that says, "Keep on rocking me, baby," or Jet Airliner, or that. This Steve Miller is on YouTube, and he has a YouTube channel. He's kind of getting his feet wet, I should say. And he does a lot with Penn and knows a lot of the history and a lot about these reels. Takes them apart just like I do, puts them back together. More a saltwater oriented version of taking it apart and putting it back together, but give him a watch. I'm gonna put up here Reef Reacher Fishing. That's Reef, R-E-E-F, Reef Reacher Fishing. Steve Miller, look him up. If you're interested in Penn reels, the man knows a lot about them. I've been watching him and tell him that Willie from the Great Outdoors sent you. Give him a comment. We're going to take this guy apart. Let's get down here to the table and commence to ripping into this thing. I don't think it's going to be that much different than, say, a 2062 Shakespeare or even a Mitchell in some fashion or so. So let me get you guys down to the table and let's get into this thing and get it cleaned up and get it ready for the water. Now, as you can see on this particular cap, the drag knob does not have a hole in the middle. That's a problem with the 716. It's got a hole in the middle and it's got that little button you push to raise it off. And when you tighten down on the drag button, the pressure that it's puts on it cracks it in 3 places. So I've got to look for one of those. As a matter of fact, Steve from the Reef Reacher Fishing is actually looking for one of those for me. They're not easy to find. This is where we're going to start. So far, not too bad. Nice green plastic spool there that won't rust. Got a lot of brass going on right there. Nice drag bushing there. All right, let's. I love that medallion there on the side. Spinfisher 710 Penn reel, pretty cool. Hopefully that'll clean up. Let's get the big screwdriver out here. Put that in the bowl. Let's just put the little parts in the little bowl over here. And as you can see, got a little bit of a worm gear thing happening there. We got a big screw up here, small screw down there holding in the shaft. Let's get these screws out here. I'm going to go with the big screw here, put that in there. Now we should be able to pull all of this out. And there we go. It's kind of nasty dirty in there, but when we're done, this is going to look really good. That is steel if there ever was any. The shaft itself is steel. Now we're going to take that out. That is brass. Take that pivot point out right there because that's what the screw screws into there. Now we should be able to unscrew the crank arm here. Do we have any washers or anything under there? Might be a washer in there, I can't tell, but we're going to worry about that in just a moment. That shaft is steel, the gear is not. That came loose really easily. I don't know if I should be frightened about that or not. Okay, that's a squared up washer. You got that square washer, fits in there like a puzzle piece. That's going to go there. That comes off there. Okay, now we have 3 screws, small screws in here. This is, if I'm not mistaken, that's what trips your bail right there. All right, there's one. At least it didn't sound like it broke. Frightening. Yeah, very frightening. It's not wanting to turn. I might try to clean this up first, and let's get some hot water going on that there before we get too far ahead of ourselves here. So if you'd like to see what immense happiness looks like, this screw came loose, some hot water, and a good old snap-on screwdriver from about 1971. So I'm very happy that that came out. Let's see what's under here. There's your bearing. So far this is very much like a Shakespeare, like a 2062. But now the biggest problem we're going to have is getting that bearing out. Okay, so here we are back after an intense amount of cleaning. These reels, of course, being in the salt water as much as they are, you get a little bit of corrosion built up on things, and therefore it takes a little bit more to take care of the issue. Speaking of issue, I got one thing I want to do here. This bearing is it's okay, but it ain't great. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it in this little bowl right here, and I'm going to put oil on top of it and hopefully let some of that sink down in there. Meanwhile, we can start putting the side back together again, the crank gear itself and all of that, and get that put back together. Again, the paint and so forth, whoops, on this thing is not gorgeous, but I don't care that it's not pretty. I just care that it functions, and that's what we want. Now, of course, you got a mixture here of brass and obviously stainless steel. Cleaned up really nice, got all the teeth nice and clean there. No goo in there. If you notice, there's a gap. I hope you can see it. There's a gap right there, and that kind of traps oil in there. So what I like to do is push it in there till that gap where it goes in is just split halfway. And then I will do this so it goes into that gap. I know it's hard to see, and you get the idea. Let's get that out of there. All of this stuff had like a white powdery corrosion on it. And I think I might even wax that thing. It's like a white plastic. Drop this washer over top of this, and then we will thread that back on. Now on the sides of these reels, if you notice right here, this little point here, if you can see it, that is for putting oil in. You can push in on it. It's a spring-loaded ball right there, and you can push in on that, and you can get oil to go down into that place I just oiled. But since I've done that already, we don't need it. It's not necessary. Get that in there. Now we can take this bearing. Man, she's hard to get in there. That's gonna be fun to get out. Might have should have bought a new one before I put that one in there. There we go. She's got a bit of a growl to her, but there's nothing much I can do about it. I do not have a replacement for it, so. But it's back in there. This is your device for tripping. Get back on there. Tripping the bail. So that had to be at the, if you're looking at it, 1 o'clock position over there. Now those just need to be snug. They don't need to be like down in there so hard that you can't get them back out again, because I'm going to tell you, whoever had them in there before, I struggled to get them out. I'm very happy they didn't break. Guess we can go ahead and put the rotor back on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little grease, just a little, right in there. Just putting it in on half of it on that slot, just so when I put this back down in there, it will catch and do its thing. See, this is a puzzle piece here, so you have to get it lined up in its correct formation there. Now we've got to get this nut on here to catch. We got this little rotating top hat flat piece here that's got to go there. Then you have to have this little swing arm here that pivots up and down on the drive shaft there. Just gotta get that in there and get the correct screw, which is this guy here. That screw has got, as you see, threaded to a point and then a pivot point that fits inside that little top hat. Then I'm going to do my best to try to catch that hole there. Of course, you guys can see it and I can't, which really isn't very helpful in my world. I mean, I want you guys to see what's going on, but I've got to be able to do this. Now that'll go down in there. Got to take our thumb and push it over here so it'll go through the hole. Now we got this other little screw-mabob that's got to fit in here. Now what we can do is put our plate back on, which, by the way, I cleaned the plate up a little bit and just kind of touched on the fish and the name a little bit with some steel wool and got a little bit of that brass showing. I just thought it looked cool. Just kind of brought it back around. And our outside screw-mabob's got to go on here. This thing, you can see the edges where it has gone up and down and around, and the drag, I guess, from some fish that have pulled on it, where it has rubbed on the inside of the rotor, and you can see the grooves, that's kind of cool, to be honest with you. That's pretty neat, because this thing's it's had some life, you know. It's done some things it was supposed to do. If you notice, here is that gap again I was telling you about, if you can see it in there. And that holds oil, which what I like to do, again, is I'll put that part of the way down there. Actually, this ain't gonna be easy doing this one. And I will try to drip it. There's that. Now I'm going to show you a very important part, okay? Even though you would think it's the last part that goes on, but it's an extremely important piece. This is the truck that drives by and makes too much noise while you're trying to talk. It's your drag knob. This drag knob, just like the others, it began to split. You see there's a split right there, and there's one over here. This white plastic that they used, Penn used back in that time frame, it just aged and it began to crack. Unfortunately, on the next reel that you see, you're going to see one that's really cracked on the 7/16, and I'll show you that one. But it's sad that happens. We just got to get out here and try to find new parts. That's the big thing. But we're going to be careful. We're not going to run this drag all the way down very hard, because that is what cracks this thing. Oh, that's really a good drag, actually. You don't have to give it a whole lot. We are doing the thing. This reel almost needs a beach towel to be able to do the thing. There's a whole lot of real estate here. Anyway, yeah, there is a lot of reel here. The 710 is a big reel. Not something I'm used to using by any means, but looking extremely forward to bringing something in on this thing. Even if we just do a little, you know, bottom rig fishing with the, you know, squid, a couple of 2-ounce sinkers. But that means I gotta buy a saltwater license. And let me tell you, some of that stuff ain't cheap anymore. I don't think any of it, nothing's cheap anymore, really. Again, this reel here you can find in many different forms of condition, I guess would be the best thing to say. So if you see one, I mean, obviously it's not a complicated reel to do. It is very much 2062. To be quite honest, I would like to try both of them side by side and see how they would work out. I have a 2062. Man, the oil just brings it around. I mean, it is just like wax. I mean, it just brings it around. The 710 by Penn Spinfisher. The Greenie. It's called the Greenie. All of these were called Greenies. Later on, they went to the Z version of these. So you had a 710, a 712, a 716, Z. And when you went to the Z, you went to a gold and black. Okay? And from what I understand, some of the pieces still, you know, fit one another. Again, check out Steve Miller at Reef Reacher Fishing. If you're interested in Penn Reels, he's the guy to not talk to. I guess you can talk to him. You can email him or talk to him. I did. I emailed him and contacted him about the reel that's coming for part 2 of the Greenies. This is part 1, the 710. That bearing's not bad. I think it'll, oh yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. This is going to be fun. This is going to be a little departure from what I normally do with the freshwater stuff, and we could even freshwater catfish with this thing and get out there and reel in some big ones if we can get to a place where we can find some, because I've tried several times and it hasn't really worked out. But hope you guys enjoyed this. A little bit of different content going on here. Some saltwater stuff happening. Penn 710 Spinfisher. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you on part 2. Whenever part 2 may be. 716's on the way, so part 2 will be on the way as well. I was going to say whatever the next one may be, but you know, I'm kind of giving it away. It's kind of like a little going to the movies. You know, the first 35 minutes that you're in there eating popcorn, you eat all your popcorn and you drink all your drink, just watching the previews for the movies that are coming out. Then by the time the movie comes out, you've eaten everything. So you got to get up and weasel your way through everybody, and you're kind of got your butt all up where you're trying to walk in front of people. And excuse me, pardon me, sorry, I got to go get another drink. I drank all ate my popcorn, ate all my candy, my goobers, and my Raisinets, and that kind of thing. So anyway, enjoy the movies.